Asante, Senegal, 1860s. The French have established a small trading post here, but the local leaders aren't too happy about it. So they send out an invitation to all of the surrounding kingdoms and tribes to meet up with them for a conference to discuss how to get rid of the French once and for all. All of the regional powers accept the invite except one, the Kingdom of Guinea, led by this guy, Samori Touré. Touré had been fighting against the French for years and had even captured the town of Cancun from them just a few months prior, but despite his success, he turned down the invite to meet up with all of these other African leaders. And when everyone else showed up to the conference, they were pretty pissed that he wasn't there. Now, some of these leaders had never met before, so they took the opportunity to kind of get to know each other while also figuring out a way to kick out the French. There was just one problem. They couldn't figure out a way to kick out the French. The French were too well armed and too well organized. Plus, there was a lot of valuable stuff to gain by working with the French, like guns, gold, and most importantly, knowledge. See, the French had advanced weapons. But they also had something else that was incredibly powerful. Something that could help them win wars far away from Africa. And that was the telegraph, and several of these African leaders wanted access to it. One leader in particular really wanted access to this new technology. That would be the Emir of the Guinea Empire. He actually sent a bunch of men to go and learn how to use the telegraph. But it was too late because the French had already packed up their stuff and were headed back to France. Now, the emirs weren't having it. He demanded that they hand over the telegraph, but they refused, which pissed off the emir. So, he declared war on them and began marching his army toward the coast. The problem was he didn't have a navy. The French did. So the French were able to fend off the emir's attacks and then just sail up a river and capture his capital. The emirs now realized that he needed help, like from everyone at that conference. So he sent out messengers to all of the attendees asking for troops. Everyone showed up except for one. Samori Touré. You see, Samori Touré wasn't interested in overthrowing the French just to give the telegraph to someone else. He wanted it for himself. And so he began to assemble his army. He called on all able-bodied men to come and fight for him. And many did. Some were from far away. Others had never even met him before, but they knew of his military prowess and wanted to learn from him. Soon enough, he had an army of tens of thousands of men ready to take on the French. Now, while the French had guns, Samori's army had something else. Something that was even more powerful: elephants. Yes, war elephants. Just listen to that. War elephants. The French hadn't prepared for this, and honestly, they weren't even sure if they existed anymore. After all, they'd only heard stories about huge armies of elephants from the Portuguese who'd traveled to West Africa decades ago, but those stories were true. And when Samori's elephants charged into battle, the French were no match for them. Their gunpowder weapons were useless against the thick hides of the elephants. It was a massacre. Samori's men killed hundreds of French soldiers and managed to capture several towns that the French had occupied for years. In fact, they almost captured the capital of Senegal. But at the last minute, Samori decided to call off the attack. You see, Samori Touré wasn't just a military genius, he was also a savvy diplomat. He understood that in order to defeat the French, he needed to keep his army together, and in order to do that, he needed to keep them happy. And what would make his troops happier than taking a break from fighting to lay siege to a massive gold mine? Yeah, you heard that right. While leading his army on their victorious campaign, Samori also found time to conquer a giant gold mine, which gave him a ton of resources to continue to build his army and expand his empire. In fact, he conquered so much gold, he essentially funded the entire decolonization movement in West Africa. And it wasn't until after he died that the French were finally able to put down the rebellion. And even then, it took them years to do it.